Ambassador Cricstell stood motionless in the observation chamber of the human military archive, his 3 eyes fixed on the metallic cylinder suspended in the containment field. The humans called it a nuclear warhead. To Cricstell, it looked unremarkable. A simple metal tube barely larger than his torso. "This one," the human officer said casually, gesturing toward the device as relatively small, 15 kilotons. West stopped making these decades ago. Cricstell's translator implant struggled with the term kilotons. When the meaning finally processed, his skin shifted to a pale gray, the Vexerian color of pure terror. 15,000 tons of explosive force, he whispered in that small container. The officer, a woman named Colonel Martinez, nodded. "That's nothing. We have weapons 1,000 times more powerful in our retired stockpile. We don't even bother manufacturing them anymore." Cricstell had come to Earth as part of the Galactic Council's diplomatic outreach. Humanity had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel and made contact with the greater galactic community. The Council's assessment had been clear. Humans were primitive, aggressive, and potentially dangerous. They needed to be evaluated, but nothing had prepared Cricstell for this. "When you say retired," he began carefully, "you mean you've moved past such weapons? Found more civilized solutions?" Colonel Martinez's expression was difficult to read. "Not exactly. We retired them because they're too destructive, too difficult to control the aftermath. We have more precise weapons now." She led him to another section of the archive. Crystal's legs felt weak. More precise? How could anything be more terrifying than a device that could vaporize a city? The next chamber contained what looked like a small satellite. Its surface was matte black, covered in sensors and emitters. "This is a kinetic bombardment platform," Martinez explained. "We call them rods from God. Tungsten telephone poles dropped from orbit. No explosives, no radiation, no fallout, just kinetic energy. One rod can hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon, but it leaves everything intact except the target and a crater." Cricstell's skin had gone completely white. Now, in his 70 years of diplomatic service across 15 species, he had never encountered anything like this. The Vexerians had weapons, of course. Plasma lances, disruption fields, even crude chemical explosives. But this was something else entirely. How many wars has humanity fought with these weapons? He asked, already dreading the answer. "None," Martinez replied simply. "Cricstell's translator must have malfunctioned." "Repeat that." "We've never used them in war. We built them as deterrents. The last time humanity used nuclear weapons in conflict was in 1945, and we've regretted it ever since." The ambassador's mind reeled. Humanity had possessed world-ending weapons for over 3 centuries and never used them. The Vexerians had developed plasma weapons only 60 years ago, and they'd immediately used them in the border wars. Every species he knew had wielded their most powerful weapons the moment they were available. "I don't understand," Cricstell said. "You have the power to end any conflict instantly, to defeat any enemy. Why would you not?" "Because it would be too easy," Martinez interrupted. Her voice had gone quiet, almost sad. "Ambassador, do you know what happens when war becomes easy? When victory is guaranteed? When you can end any conflict with the press of a button." She pulled up a holographic display. Images flickered past. Burning cities, skeletal remains of buildings, photographs of human faces marked with radiation burns. "We learned something in our world wars," she continued. "Will earned that the easier it is to kill, the less we think about killing. Will earned that ultimate power doesn't bring ultimate victory. It brings ultimate responsibility and ultimate horror." Cricstell stared at the images. His diplomatic training had covered many scenarios, but not this. Not a species that had achieved absolute military superiority and then stepped back. "The Galactic Council believes humans are dangerous because you're aggressive," he said slowly. "But you're not, are you? You're dangerous because you've mastered aggression. You've learned to fear your own power." Martinez smiled grimly. "We're aggressive, Ambassador. Make no mistake. We have every instinct for war that we had when we were throwing rocks at each other in caves. But we've also learned that those instincts can lead us to do things we can never undo. So we coups actively choose every single day not to use the easy path. She gestured around the archive. Every weapon here represents a choice. We could end any conflict in minutes. We could conquer any planet in hours. But we don't. Not because we can't, but because remember what happens when power becomes its own justification. Cricstell would file his report to the Galactic Council that night. He would tell them that humanity was indeed dangerous, more dangerous than anyone had imagined, but not because they were warlike or aggressive. Humanity was dangerous because they had learned to shackle their own demons. They had stared into the abyss of total war, and, instead of blinking, had built guardrails around that abyss and posted signs warning others away. They had achieved the power to win any war easily, and had chosen instead to make war as difficult, as costly, as heartbreaking as possible. In doing so, they had created a paradox, the strongest military force in the known galaxy, maintained precisely to ensure it would never be used. As Quix left Earth's orbit, he looked back at the blue-green planet and felt something he'd never felt before when leaving a diplomatic assignment. Relief. Relief that humanity had learned their lesson, and terror at the thought of what that lesson must have cost them. Somewhere on that planet, in archives and silos and orbital platforms, slept weapons that could end worlds, and the humans who controlled them spent every day making sure those weapons kept sleeping. The Crackle realized was true power, not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to coups restraint.